Shalom, all praise to Yahweh, Ba'ashem Yahushua, Ba'ashem Harakakadash. The man said other apostles of great millstone at rule one. Shalom to the brothers doing work certain truth. Interesting little thing here. You have another country, because I believe Sweden has mandatory military service. They introduced it like a year back at this point, maybe a bit longer. And you've had a few other countries closer to Russia kind of introduce like mandatory military service again, conscription. Because why? They're basically it's mainly from Trump, hinting at pulling out of NATO and basically giving less support towards Europe. So a lot of these countries have been, ramping up their military. And Russia as well. So it's on the Metro. It says France confirms voluntary military conscription in wake of Russia war threat. Let me see what the video is saying actually.
Un nouveau service national va être institué progressivement dès l'été prochain. Ce service poursuit trois objectifs précis. Renforcer le pacte noué entre notre nation et notre armée. Renforcer la capacité de résistance de notre nation.
But yeah, it says France will introduce a voluntary military service of 10 months beginning next summer, becoming the latest EU country to hint at war preparations in the face of a growing threat from Russia. President Emmanuel Macron has confirmed the expansion of the military, focusing on volunteers mostly aged 18 to 19. And yeah, I know as far as with the UK and the US, there's been a shortage in like maybe the last 6, 7, 8 years. Actually, no, yeah, it would be about 8, I think like 2018, 2017, something in that kind of range. They've not been hitting their targets as far as people signing up for the army. So, this is voluntary conscription because what they say it was 10 months. And you have a lot of people in the age range like young, 18, 19. They're not invested in, as far as the military. That's been something that's been hard. But then I think the part of the push will be you have a lot of people in the current times as well, even why people jumping on before it's mandatory. But yeah, you'll likely have a lot of people where now in that young age range just graduated from uni, where they're not getting jobs, they're not able to get jobs, like the job market's fucked. And then these man will the pay is good, and then they'll also pay for like if you want to get like a master's or whatever, or if you want to learn skills, they'll put money towards it. That's a lot of the draw of what gets people to go to the military. It might not be the what's the term, the patriotism that would draw people in. It'll more just be the just them thinking like, well, fuck it, I ain't got nothing better to do. Because what does it say? So reading note, it says a new national service will be introduced gradually starting next summer. He said during a speech to troops in Versailles, Allier, I can't pronounce French. This makes France, or wherever that is, probably France. This makes France the first European heavyweight and the first nation that has nuclear capabilities to reintroduce military service. And I think France is the most militarized country in Europe as far as like military's gone. They've got the most developed military out of like all of the EU. There were, the ones that were chiefly involved in a lot of the like Arab Spring countries, Syria, various different countries. They've kind of been arm in arm with the US for a good minute. So this is Macron stressed that volunteers would be deployed only on national soil and not to the front line in Ukraine. Yeah, that's what they're saying for now. But then even then, it's the rumors have been swirling about reconciliation, and even think one of Zelensky's ministers was indicted on corruption because they said they're doing a corruption investigation. Apparently Zelensky as well, but Ukraine's been a notorious corrupt shithole for a little while, so it's not really a surprise. But then what does it really matter in the long run? Who knows? So it says volunteers would see serious combat training to reaffirm the importance of preparing a nation and its morale to face growing threats. The LSA Palace said earlier today the hopes are that 3,000 people will join in the first year, but the new voluntary service could see up to 50,000 people per year as it evolves, as military officials confirm they're preparing for a confrontation with our countries by 2030. So yeah, 2030, Agenda 2030. There's a lot of things there which very, they're pushing towards. And that military conflict, because the thing is, even is, everyone's talking about Russia, but through prophecy, everyone's gonna flip on America, man. So it's the spirit all these different nations are now, like in Europe, because like post World War II, really, they've basically left the whole agreement was more or less to leave it to, America to be world police. But now you've got the maniac, Nero, Trump out there, just doing all kinds of madness. This guy is currently bombing up Venezuela, setting up a no-fly zone over Venezuela. So because of these things, they're then going to be thinking like, okay, well, are we really just going to leave everything in that guy's hands? And it very much like has that kind of look to it, which is all building towards that prophecy. What does it say? So it says, it comes as the threat of an attack from Russia continues to loom over the continent. Last week, France's top general made headlines as he warned that the country must be prepared to lose its children. And yeah, people getting upset, but it's it's the real, really. You should in fact be prepared to lose lose your children. The US has made it clear they expect Europe to take care of their own defense. And now, the US has made clear they expect Europe to take care of their own defense and now not rely on them to counter Russian threats. Okay, so that's a typo. I was confused. So yeah, it's that's been the push, because even under his prior stint, he was what do you call it? Under his prior stint, he was pressuring NATO to increase their funding. And yeah, it's like since he came in on this one, it's kind of been looking like he's gonna pull out. So it says Nordic and Baltic states already have some form of conscription, with Finland having one of the world's largest reserve based on universal male conscription. Yeah. And Sweden reintroduced selective conscription with mandatory registration for both men and women. Yeah. Theirs was both men and women. So, they're rousing up the mighty men. And, the women gonna be in there cooking too. But that's that's the spirit of the times. Because why? It's Russia's the big boogeyman currently, and the big thing everyone kind of notes as well is that Russia's Russia's military is being blooded right now. They're being given the experience in warfare. They're basically seeing the front lines to where they're ready for actual combat. But other than Ukraine, it's like no one else has got a generation now that's seen combat. Like the last big campaign was like mid-2000s, where it was like the Iraq War. Iraq and Afghanistan would have been like the last time you had a big swathe of like mainly American but also European troops as well getting involved. But then it's like since then there's not really been like as far as for the current, like if you'll talk about people that were like in prime age, so let's say think it's 16. Be 16 to like probably 28. Anyone that's like 16, if it's like even 28, they're 28 now. Yeah, they would have been. They might have barely seen a stint. They would have been had to be very young when they saw combat in like Iraq. Because what, 28? Yeah, they'll have to be very young. And they're talking for 2030. Someone in 2030, yeah, there's no way. They would have been born 2002. In 2030, yeah. So it's more or less the whole generation would have seen war in the Western countries. They're all going to be retired or aged out, or they might be in like a more senior role, but not like boots on the ground soldiers. And then that raw reality of boots on the ground carnage, you know, that's something you need to be prepped for. If them Russians already cold as hell, because they've been in the midst of it for a season and a half, man, then it's gonna be like it's gonna be a mess. This is what was it? No, Joel 3 and 9. So Joel 3 and 9, it says, "Proclaim ye this among the Gentiles, prepare war, wake up the mighty men, let all the men of war draw near, let them come up. Beat your plowshares into swords and your pruning hooks into spears. Let the weak say, I am strong." And yeah, these things all happen. It's funny as well, because it's the same thing happening in the States, where you're having like the National Guard being put out to supposedly combat what's it called? What's the word? A crime and immigration. But then they're getting experience in like urban, an urban setting, because why? That's also going to be an aspect. You're going to have the military utilizing that urban setting, to put the squeeze on the people, especially in the States, man. Because when that mark gets fully integrated, then it's these soldiers are going to be a big part of it, man. Them jarheads. Because there's what, let the weak say, I am strong. Assemble yourselves and come all ye heathen, and gather yourselves together round about. Thither cause thy mighty ones to come down, O Lord Yahweh. Let the heathen be wakened, and come up to the valley of Jehoshaphat, or Yahweh Shaphat, the Most High's judgment. For there will I sit to judge all the heathen round about. And that's, all these different nations basically being corralled, being drawn in, being pushed towards that conflict. And it's going to, centralize in the Middle East. And you have the Gaza situation. It's a long, drawn out, just like Ukraine. It's now been drawn out, and it's sucking in all these different nations. Everyone's talking about, why is money still going towards Americans, especially? Why is money still going towards, state of Israel? Why is Europeans are like, why the fuck is money still going towards Ukraine when men are losing all kinds of benefits? Can't get no job, can't get no lifestyle. They're like, what the fuck's going on here? But why? It's because, hey, it's prophecy, man. Everyone's got to get fit to the battle for that war. We'll read this Ezekiel 38 and 3. It says, "And say, thus saith the Lord power, behold, I am against thee, O Gog, the chief prince of Meshach and Tubal, and I will turn thee back and put hooks into thy jaws, and I'll bring thee forth, and all thine army, horses and horsemen, all of them clothed with all sorts of armor." And yeah, that's basically it's been conflict, war, carnage since that spirit got put back on what's his face, man, on Putin. And he's really built that contention, and that contention's done work, man. It says what now bring thee forth, and all thine army, horses and horsemen, all of them clothed with all sorts of armor, even a great company with buckler and shields, all of them handling swords. Persia, Ethiopia, and Libya with them, all of them with shield and helmet. Yeah, so it's the spirit was put back on Russia, and even with its allies, with Iran, now North Korea as well. You got North Korea, Kim Jong-un saying like, yo, blow yourselves up instead of being captured if you're a North Korean troop and whatnot. China as well, economically supporting them. Brazil, these BRICS nations as well, throwing in a lot. India as well, and a lot of these as well. Just as I said, the weak side are strong. They've got nuclear capabilities. Because that was a big thing they were saying about France. It's a nuclear nation. It's one of the chief nations, which it is, for Europe. But then when we deal with nukes, there's a lot of different countries out there with them as well, man. But yeah, it's all stirring up. All these different prophecies, coming to a head. Meanwhile, man are out here saying Esau's gonna be saved. That's just resurfaced. Let you know, man. It's the time, and some people just aren't. It's spirit's not dealing with them, man. But yeah, I'll leave it there. Shalom, shalom.